Tony D'Angelo joins us each and every Tuesday to talk about a wide variety of things. You can follow him on Tony D'Angelo 7 on Twitter, which is a great place to start. He's also part of the morning chat back and forth on our Facebook thread. Lee Elci, Voice of Freedom. We welcome him today. Good morning and Happy New Year, Tony. How are you?
Good morning and Happy New Year. Happy New Year to the kids, and proud to be among you.
All right, what's going on today? Where are we going to start today? I mean, I know
we got 2 points today. We have a lot of ground to cover because they're large points, and I tried to stay away from this, but one of our very dear listeners asked me a question yesterday about is this true what they're saying about Donald Trump and the tax returns? And we spoke a little bit about this last week on the Mike Gallagher show. And, this year, I just want to make it where I'm tired. I'm just tired of non-truths and part-truths and people speaking as authorities and have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. And, Lee Elci, you never see a worse, scrum or mess or whatever you want to call it when you mix finance or taxes or policy with media. I mean, it just goes from bad to worse. And what I did, spoke a little bit about this last week, but I went back and I did it again, is I don't read these news reports. I read them after I look at the documents. And I went to look at the actual Ways and Means report that was prepared for Richard Neal of Massachusetts. Richie Neal's a congressman. He's been trying to kill Donald Trump for years and finally was able to do it when the committee chairmanships changed. Now, with that, this report, it's 40 pages. It's the Joint Committee on Taxation. They do very, very, very good work. It's a little bit biased. But one thing I want to make absolutely clear, and I challenge anybody to go and do this, or if you want the report, I can certainly zip you a copy. Donald Trump paid income taxes every single year, 2015 to 2020. New York Times says, no, he didn't pay any income taxes. Reuters didn't pay any income taxes. I mean, these used to be treasured sources. These idiots are looking at the wrong line of the return and the report. Donald Trump he's heavily involved in real estate, as we know, and he's a venture guy. He tries different things in C corporations. I'm sure some of them succeed and some of them fail, and you need capitalists. You need people that will go and try things and make things shall we say, a new idea. Some will catch on, some don't. He's planting a garden. Now, one of the things you do see with Donald Trump that's very clear to me is he'll have bulbish years. In 2018, he paid $2 million worth of taxes, probably because in 2017 he paid about $300,000, because there's depreciation and there's write-offs. But this doesn't mean that you're never going to pay the taxes. It only means that you're deferring them to another year. But what did Trump do wrong? Well, the failure of Trump, in my estimation, we've talked about this before, he's not an evil man. He is a mismanaged man in a lot of cases, and he goes out and he gets a charitable appraisal for property, but he doesn't use the right appraiser. That's $21 million if that doesn't come out. There's some things of maybe he used the aircraft for personal purposes. Well, maybe he did and maybe he didn't. I mean, that's not exactly criminal conduct, but what you don't see is you don't see additional assessments, you don't see fraud, you don't see evasion, you see none of that. So when you look at his tax returns, you really get a look at the man. It's how he rolls. And I could only wish and only hope that, shall he ascend to higher office once again, he learns to manage better. He is his own worst enemy. And it's just, So then I go back and read the articles and I shake my head and believe what you want to believe, people. I got the report. I can send you the report.
So one of the things that was floating around out there, and this is no real business necessarily of mine or really anybody. I guess it is business of everybody else's if they want to make it their business, but we've criticized people in the past for not paying more in charitable donations. Did you find any of that stuff in there?
Well, he gave property and he gave charitable easements and things like that. He didn't do a lot in cash I mean, a lot for you and a lot for me, but his giving was more of property because pretty much what he has is property. But you raise a good point, which is really this, and I was thinking about this because we had the whole scrum during the governor's campaign, and produce your tax return, no, produce your tax return, and all this other kind of stuff. It's like, look, this is America, people, at least for part of us, and go out and make all the money you want. I really don't give a rat's tail in Pittsburgh, but the thing I want to find out is, are you influencing policy? Are you self-dealing? Are you leveraging your government in order to do something? Now, Trump, to his credit, he and Melania filed jointly. We got a guy in this state who is our chief executive, Governor Ned Lamont. We may have people listening from different parts of the country. Good morning. Please stick around. And the thing about Ned Lamont is what has he done? Now, he represented, it wouldn't even let us see the representation of, I made $54 million on investment income. That's right. Pretty good. And he files separately, won't release any of that. He has known ties. Just don't tell me I am telling tall tales. I will give you an SEC document. He has known ties to offshore secretive tax havens. He uses state money to prop up his bad deals, and he buries things in nonprofits, and he files separately. And it's like, hey, the guy is wonderful, but Donald Trump is evil. I am so tired of this. I just want to call it for what it is. I will tell you where Trump mismanaged. I will tell you that our governor is largely dealing in questionable activity and has been for some time. But we, and this is the other thing, Lee Elci, we don't even know if Ned Lamont pays income taxes. How much of this stuff is offshore? Nobody tells us. Right. I mean, he never gave us a representation, and we have a media that covers for him, that tries to be glib, and we have pretty much a legislature, Democrat and Republican. I realize Republicans a minority, but nobody calls the guy out on it and saying produce. And it's like here we are, and it's like it is time to call a spade in 2023. That's where I'm at.
All right, so you're in your expert opinion, Trump pretty much his taxes. There's really nothing to see here. As far as Lamont goes, there's still a lot of shady area. Well,
and Trump, let me just say this, and this is really, I think this is critical and of mention. Trump has been audited every single year since 2009, and he has 5 people devoted to him and his enterprises. Now, think about that. And with all of that, there's no additional assessments, there's no fraud, there's no malfeasance. In fact, Richie Neal in the report is saying, well, you guys should have audited better. I mean, that's basically what it is. There's subjective stuff. There's stuff that, go out and use the right appraiser, Mr. Trump. I mean, stuff like that. Right. But it's like, nothing, I don't see one word in the Ways and Means report about offshore activity. Right. I mean, it's what it is. He's an imperfect man, and that's maybe his attraction.
And Tony, the whole idea, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but January 6th, they wrap things up. The reason why we saw none of this during the hearings is because there's nothing to see, right? I mean, the reason why they didn't make a big deal out of this, and they released these taxes, but they didn't make a big deal out of this because there really is nothing nefarious. And I never thought there was going to be anything nefarious. The only thing I thought you might see, and is there anything in there as far as dealing with Russia, like as far as loans, et cetera?
No Russia, nothing offshore, none of that, at least. Nothing that shows up with it. The man is a real estate investor. Right. He has real estate investments all over the world. And, he takes what the law allows him to in business credits and depreciation.
I just wish in those kinds of cases, it just seems like it's hindsight, but there's nothing in there. You're the president of the United States. And just to be sort of a stick in the mud, so to speak, he decided not to release him. To shut everybody up, I would have released him. You know what I mean?
That goes to his management. And the thing is, he made the, whatever you want to call it, the error of listening to his political advisors. Maybe he didn't think when he came down the stairs. Maybe he didn't, think about the ramifications of everything. But that is one thing I'd like to see. You're running for an executive office. Within a month, you got to have him out there. No more of this, like you do, you don't. And he did himself no favors by hiding the ball. There's no question about that.
Tony D'Angelo 7 on Twitter. It's a great follow. We're lucky to have him each and every Tuesday, and we appreciate his diligence and digging into a lot of this stuff. And he's about to embark on something that's become a pet peeve of mine, because at first I was more libertarian about this and like, whatever you want to do behind your own closed doors, knock yourself out. But now everywhere I go, Tony, I am attacked. I am under siege by the smell of marijuana everywhere.
And get used to it. And basically, we're now, Connecticut's now officially in the dope game, or I guess within a week. And it is a brave new world, in my estimation. For what it is worth, it is a world that people really didn't think through everything that is going to be coming down. I want to call to mind, we'd spoken to this maybe a year and a half ago, maybe 18 months, the governor of Connecticut's wife, Ann Lamont. I'm going through some of this, from the beginning, because I know we have newer people, is a venture capitalist, and one of the equities that was in her portfolio is something known as Dama Financial, D-A-M-A. Now, it is really, shall we say, marijuana or pot banking, and it is, regardless of what you read in the newspapers, regardless of what you see on TV, regardless of what you see about, the evils of the war on drugs, have your own opinion about that. But marijuana, as it is a Schedule I controlled substance that is illegal under federal law, and it still is. And if you're dealing in an illegal substance, there's only two ways you can get money out of your activity. You either deal in cash, what's known on the street as dead presidents, or you launder the money to legitimate status and pay the cost of that. There's no other way. Now, federal banking law in this thing is a mess. And it goes back to the Obama administration, when Obama's deputy AG, his name is James Cole, he wrote something called the Cole Memo that says, marijuana is illegal, but we're not going to enforce it. So when Jeff Sessions was AG in 2018 under Trump, he rescinded that memo, and that's where it stands. But Merrick Garland pretty much says I'm following the Cole thing. So we've got at least 2 years of a sea of mess, and the law is still the law. Now, if your marijuana stores in Connecticut are dealing in cash, and this is where something like a Dama Financial comes in, you need an agent to come and pick up the cash and, travel some distance to where this cash could be deposited or whatever. They're not dealing in credit cards because it's the banking laws, and the banking laws say it's illegal. Now, it's quite clear that when the governor signed this arrangement, the Dama, shall we say, the banners were in the Oak HCFT portfolio. So he knew exactly what he was doing, and he was making a market for an industry where his wife was involved. Now, when we ourselves here, and a bunch of good folks on Twitter and us here on the radio, started the pushback about this, Dama was absolutely stripped from his, or shall we say, the Oak HCFT site. You can go back on the Internet Archive, and you can certainly see it there. It did happen. They're trying to rewrite history. But according to venture capital registries like Traxon, they say that Oak HCFT is still very much involved. Now, the other thing we need to consider is, shall we say, the competition, cough, spit, choke. And the competition here is not, people carrying briefcases and, reading the Wall Street Journal and on their way to the city. These are rough customers, and you got to ask yourself, will they fight back? Will they get into other more dangerous things in order to be more competitive, like pot with fentanyl? Will they assault the vans coming out of the stores? You really don't know. The dope game is all very terribly uncharted territory. If you go back to the 1930s, and if you go back to the repeal of Prohibition, which is really like the only thing we can look at, this is what happened back then. And I mean, organized crime became a lot tougher and a lot more diverse after Prohibition. So, these are things you have to keep in mind. Nobody in Connecticut did. I'm positive of it. And you want to know something, and this is where it gets really, really, really crazy. It is an illegal activity. I'm not going to argue morality. I'm telling you what federal law says. And will federal law change in our lifetime? Possibly, possibly not. But when you read the arrangement or the banking contract, you've got to get banks doing this on the hush-hush QT. And when you read the banking contract for Dama Financial, it says, because my first thing is, what's the liability? Because you're transporting cash. And it's very clear that, and this is what they tell their customers, if circumstances, and this is part 6 of our liability for failure to complete, if circumstances beyond our control, such as fire, flood, or computer failure, prevent the completion of the transaction, i.e. the delivery of cash, despite the reasonable precautions that we have taken, we're not liable. So if somebody hits that van on the way over to wherever it is, I mean, you can't insure it. I mean, you can't insure it illegal activity. And, the other thing is they're dealing in cash. I don't know if there's tax evasion. I mean, you certainly can do that. And, it's
of
like,
course
don't tell me this can't happen.
Of course there's tax evasion.
Yeah, I know.
Every cash business in the history of mankind has had some form of or another of tax evasion. Give me a break. All right, so you're telling me that in the world of highfalutin technology, you go into these places, it's cash only.
It's cash only, yeah. I mean, you can't deal on a credit card because unless you could get some bank not admitting to it, but yeah, because the banking laws will not allow you to transact in a federally illegal substance. They answer to, quote unquote, a higher authority.
It's such a mess, Tony.
It is such a mess. And not only that, and this is the thing, and, let's just say you want to make this clean and green and wonderful, and you want to, expunge the convictions and all that. It's great. That's fine. What is the shame in Ned Lamont coming to the world, coming to Connecticut, say, look, my wife was involved in, or is involved in this equity in, financial transaction control for marijuana stores and dispensaries. But hey, I'm an ethical guy. I'm not going to allow this equity or this business to operate in my state. Yeah. But no, there's no word of that. I mean, we have to go through the back door and find out through a reputable source that he's still investing. Yeah. I mean, it is such, and like, hey, this is great. He's a wonderful guy. He's on top of things. And this is really the whole thing with ethics in this state, which are really a joke. When he constructed that joke of an ethics agreement, the whole subject was dealing with the state, dealing with the state, dealing with the state. Never, ever, and this was intentional, never, ever got into, using the policies or the power of the office of the state in not dealing with the state, but yet making it very good for me, feathering my nest. No, that light went on, but it didn't go on anywhere else except in his camp. And that is the thing. I mean, why can't we have sign-offs on tax returns, of legislatures saying, I do not influence policy, and I say that under penalty of perjury. Unless we have that, we're going to keep having these messes. And I mean, this is really, this is not going to be a good situation as it goes down.
Aside from the Lamont part of this, what's the biggest hiccup you see moving forward for this industry in the state of Connecticut? It's just the idea that it's all cash. They'll circumvent some of the rules and regulations.
I think it is a huge security risk. I think it is a huge safety risk. I mean, it's you've got competitors here that are not playing on the up and up. There's going to be pushback. These are the things that really concern me. I mean, it's not going to, when you start seeing, well, look at it this way. One thing I thought of last night is, what about insurance? I mean, insurance is a risk pool. everybody throws their money in a pot and hope they never, ever have to use it. But when you have more people driving impaired, when you have more people like the periphery of the crime of this happening, the insurance rates go up, nothing can get insured, businesses cannot operate because of the safety risks. I mean, that's the part, and then you start losing your revenue flow. That's the part I think that really, to me, is the most troubling at this point.
Tony D'Angelo 7 is where you can follow him, and I want to thank you for appearing with me on the Mike Gallagher Show. If you guys want to watch that,
thank you so much.
If you guys want to watch that, you can actually go to MikeOnline.com. I don't know how to get it from MikeOnline.com someplace else, but eventually.
Rumble. You go to Rumble.
Okay. No, I mean, I'm trying to get it like to my YouTube page, etc. Trying to figure that out. But once I figure that out, I'll let everybody know. But you can actually go to Rumble or go to Mike Online and watch the conversation I had with Tony D. Tony, thank you, my friend. I'll talk to you next week.
My pleasure. Thanks, everybody.
All right, buddy. We'll come right back.